I got a different kind of video for you today, no tech reviews or unboxings. Instead, I wanted to have a sort of sit down chat with people who are in a similar industry to me and talk about the current climate that we all find ourselves in with coronavirus. So for this video, I called up my friend Andy Burgess, who's an incredible filmmaker. And we just talked about how coronavirus is affecting him and the work that he does as a filmmaker and a content creator. And then we also spoke towards the end as well, we both have to work at home very often. And from years of doing that, the type of tips, tricks, and more importantly, apps as well that we've discovered to really help when you are having to work from home. So if you're in that situation right now, stick to the end because hopefully some of those apps will help you out. We recorded this video a couple of days ago. It's day 2 of lockdown here in the UK, I believe. And obviously we speak about how it's affected us and loss of work and things like that. But I just want to say that is, of course, incomparable to the effects that it is having around the world. And the most important thing is obviously people's health. So enjoy the video. I hope it provides some form of light entertainment during these times. Andy, coronavirus.
Hey.
Talk to me.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for having me on to do this because yesterday I was recording a live and I was like, oh, that was so fun actually talking to other people. So when you reached out and you said, let's do a podcast, I was like, yes, let's do this. And yeah, I mean, I can't believe this is only day 2 of the lockdown. I've lost track of days. It seems rather odd. But we've been staying at home for like at least a week now, like maybe going out once a day.
You've been doing the self-isolation.
It's social distancing, right? Like we've been going out like last week a bit for like a walk or a run, but staying away from people. But right now, yeah, we're just like only going out when we need to now, I guess, since the official lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
But how it's like, to your question of how it's affecting work, in some ways, quite a bit. In other ways, not at all. What I mean by that is like at the moment, I'm just doing a lot of editing and I'm in lots of like post-production aspects of work. So all I need for that is an internet connection and my laptop. So I think a lot of editors are making jokes that like self-isolation is literally just an editor's day.
It's another day. Yeah. It's
another
day in the office. Before we go too long down the road, for those of you that don't know Andy, maybe just take like a couple of minutes, explain who you are, what you do, because you're working on some incredible projects right now as well.
Of course, yeah. So I am a filmmaker, editor, host, producer, whatever you want to call me. I kind of do all those things, mainly on YouTube. It's mainly travel based. So I'll go to a specific city or a country and I'll tell a story from that town that I think's quite interesting and try to deliver it in a way that you learn, but it's not bashing you over the head with information. And at the same time, it visually looks quite beautiful.
Okay, so you're not able to travel as much right now, but in terms of editing and because you just came back from Hawaii, I don't know if we can talk too much about what that was, but have any of your processes changed because of the virus, or is it pretty much what you would have done anyway?
So it's kind of what I would have done anyway. So the work I have on that project, like nothing's changed on that. Perhaps it's a little bit slower with the people that I'm sending it back and forth with because people are now working remotely. But for me, that hasn't changed too much. I'm still able to do exactly what I was doing. So I'm not suddenly out of a load of work and having to think about what I should do. I do have more time to think about like attending to other projects or ideas that I had that I never had time to do. But in like the aspects of editing, nothing's really changed.
The processes, let's say, haven't really been affected. But in terms of, we're good friends. I'm used to seeing you running around the world and the places and constantly having work. Have you seen a big decline over the last few weeks in terms of the number of clients or the number of shoots that you are on?
Yeah, so I'm kind of in a fortunate position that I haven't lost too much from it. I had a couple of speaking events planned out. March was basically a big speaking tour for me, jumping around like the country, doing a lot of events and speaking at them. I got like halfway through that and then a bunch of them got cancelled. But work-wise, outside of the speaking event, it's actually been okay because I was just about to go into pre-production on some other videos that again, like post-production, I can do it from anywhere. All I need for that is my laptop.
You've been lucky. I mean, Andy, you do a lot of, as you say, sort of the edited, very crafted form of media. I concentrate more in the live space, and we have just seen, especially when you work in sport, with all live events pretty much put on hold. All of our live shows follow the same suit. But what I've really seen, and what I wanted to chat to you about, is eSports really coming into its own now. For example, Formula One, they postponed, I think, 5 or 6 races now of the calendar, but they're replacing them all with virtual Formula One races, which has been great to see. The FA did the same for the FA Cup and things like that. So my question to you, Andy, is like, although a lot of things are shutting down and grinding to a halt, who do you think the winners of this might be?
Yeah, I was going to say that's really interesting because I haven't seen too much about like these esports. I guess I'm just not in that world as much, but I think that's a really cool way of adapting and changing, right? I'm seeing a lot of people starting to do more Instagram lives. I've never seen so many lives pop up on like my Instagram feed at once.
True.
Or people doing like concerts in their houses, or people going live on YouTube. So I mean, we're in the best time for this to have happened. Imagine if this happened 20, 30 years ago, right? We wouldn't be able to be connected to anybody. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing that like we can record this podcast now from 2 different locations, and that you could FaceTime people every day, and that you can jump on these group calls and have all these Instagram lives or Facebook lives or whatever it is you're doing. So I think it's really interesting to see people jumping on these platforms in a creative way and seeing what else they can do. Yeah, I really enjoyed. I'm just going live with a bunch of other creators right now, and it's really good. Did it yesterday, and I'm wanting
What
to just
platform
continue.
did you do it on?
I did it on Instagram.
Okay.
And even when I set it up, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do it. And like, I even had like some background music playing on my laptop for when it started. And I was like, let me try and make this like a little show. And that took me back to the days of when I was, like you said before, when I started out in Snapchat. It was all on my phone, and it was just trying to hack the platform to make it look as professional as possible. So I was like, okay, well, let me try and do that with a live stream. Kind of like we're doing here with this podcast. So that's been fun. So I think the creators or the internet personalities that are adapting to this and just going with it, I think are going to do really well. Have you seen what Jimmy Fallon's doing?
Like he's doing his show from home, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. We're not in the US, but I assume that's been aired on TV still. And he has like his daughter like asking him questions, and his wife is like filming it. So it's really fun.
Yeah, and I think now more than ever in this situation, and it's happening globally across the world, there is a hunger for content like we have never seen before, simply because there are so many people stuck at home, as I said at the beginning of this, twiddling their thumbs thinking, what can I do next to fill this block of time? And so certainly from what I'm seeing online is there's a real hunger for more content to be created. So it does feel like for a creator, it's a time to prosper, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could look at it in 2 ways. I've seen people that are like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be posting specific content right now because it's like, it's a time where like a lot is going on in the world and a lot of issues. But I don't necessarily agree with that. A lot of people like want distractions, or they want other forms of content. I'm like reading or listening to a lot about coronavirus now, but I don't want to be like listening to that all day. Like, the only
Do you
conversations
feel
we're having,
overwhelmed with it?
yeah, a little bit. I mean, every conversation you have when you see someone is about coronavirus or what's going on. So having some distraction, for even if it's a 10-minute YouTube video or like a Netflix show, or you're playing on your PlayStation, or you're listening to an audiobook, or you're reading or something like that, I think that's like welcome. I think that's what people want. So I will continue to make videos around the topics that I currently do. I put out a video the other day that was addressing coronavirus, but I'm also working on a couple of videos that I shot before this that I'm still going to post, because I see them as, like content that people can consume that's going to like fill up your time as well. So I think it's great.
a distraction from what is going on right now, but also a form of entertainment, which
Yeah, for sure. I think you still want
especially,
both, right?
yeah, exactly. And in your case as well, in many of the videos that you produce, a form of education as well, which, whether doesn't matter what age, but certainly with schools being shut now, everyone could do with. I said at the beginning of this podcast, I wanted it to be half about how creators and like yourself have been affected by what is going on in the world right now, but also to kind of give back to those that are watching and listening of what tips, tricks, apps that we have found to really help, from whether you're working from home or you need to increase productivity because you're working from home and struggling to do it well. We kind of before came up with a list. Shall we work our way through it?
Yeah, let's do it.
I want to actually start off with the one which I completely missed, but you quite rightly pointed out with what Adobe are doing right now for the Adobe Creative Suite.
Yeah, Adobe are like it's interesting because they're not promoting this anywhere, but like
No.
just a bunch of creators are sharing this. But it's like because someone sent me a message about it the other week, and essentially what they're doing is Adobe are giving you 2 months free. I actually know someone who's done it who got it for 3 months, so I can talk you
Oh,
through both of those ways of how it's
okay.
been done.
So yeah,
And then,
you do that. I was going to say just before, to anyone listening who doesn't know what Creative Cloud is, it's Adobe's full suite of apps. So we're talking Photoshop for photos, Premiere Pro for video editing, Lightroom, Audition for audio. I think there's over 40 apps available, and they're giving it to you for 2 months is the one that I've heard of for free.
yep.
But you said you can get free three free months. So how do you do it?
Yeah, so if you sign it, you already have to be signed up to Adobe Creative Cloud. I think
Okay.
if you sign up now and then you go through this process, it will also work. So you need to have like a paid plan with them. And what you then do, you just go to cancel your subscription, and it takes you through a bunch of pages before you cancel. It's like, do you want to cancel? What are the reasons you want to cancel for? And then you hit a box that says too expensive, and then it does flash up a warning sign that's been discouraging a lot of people from going forward, but push through and you'll be fine. But the warning is you will lose, you will still have to pay X amount of money for your subscription for this year. So I think mine showed up as
Right.
you will still have to pay £75 if you cancel. And you say,
Okay.
okay, yes. And you get to the next page, and then it offers you alternatives for canceling. And one of them is we're offering 2 free months of Adobe subscription. Do you want to accept? You hit yes. And then you don't pay anything until June. So you
Perfect.
have to get past the page that says that they're going to charge you money, which they won't,
Yeah,
because
which you
there's a
can see why
process.
it's scaring people away.
Yeah, for sure, because it's trying to deter people from losing it. They're like, you're going to lose out on this much because you've signed up for this amount of time. The other way, I've seen my friend, he tried this. He went on their website and he went through the help support. So, we can talk to like a chat bot.
Yeah.
And he just asked the same question, and they offered him 3 months.
So you've done this and it's working for you. I haven't done it yet, but I will definitely be jumping on that. And yeah, it does. These are tough times. A lot of people aren't working currently at the moment. So 2 months free for something that is usually, off the top of my head, around the £50 mark in the UK, $60, $70 in the US. That really helps.
Yeah, and I love the Adobe apps, but they are so expensive. Like if you use Final Cut Pro or Logic, which are like Mac alternatives for music and film, you pay like a one-off price, right? Like Adobe is very expensive for it, but I do appreciate how well these apps work together. Like, so since then, I mean, I've only had a full subscription to all the apps since January, but now I have all
Yep.
the apps and they all work together. I'm just using like all of them together. So I'm using Audition with Premiere, which is a audio app with the video app. I'm using the graphic apps more like Illustrator. So I'm like really making the most of it and taking this time to learn more about them, to like develop my skills in using them, especially while we have, I guess,
Spare
more
time.
downtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like trying to find ways to fill that time with productive and like learning about like these products like more.
Good tip for Adobe Creative Cloud there. What other stuff are you using? You mentioned to me that you're using Google Drive quite a lot.
So like Google Drive is my go-to for everything related to files. Um,
Okay.
like even just when I'm on pre-production in a video, I am currently writing all my scripts in Google Docs on my laptop. And then when I go out to shoot, I can open my phone and they're right there on my phone. So I can look at a script. It's perfect. It's working. Um, if I'm like having to like put in like just the whole cloud system just
Yeah.
works so efficiently. I think I pay something like £1.79 a month just for like 100 gigabytes because I don't use too much more than that.
Hmm.
But I've been working on a lot of pre-production on big shoots where I'm having to have spreadsheets and like documents and flight itinerary and all this like boring, like mundane information that as a filmmaker you don't really want to think about, but it's actually really important. So if I can just have that all in a Google file, and then when I'm out on location, I know it's on my phone as well. I can just whip it out and I have it there instantly.
Yeah.
And same with post production. If I'm wanting to save videos or waivers or any assets that might have, I just always know that wherever I am in the world, I can access them either from my laptop or my phone.
For me, the killer feature of Google Drive is the collaboration feature as well.
Oh yeah.
It's we again, same as you, we use it a lot for running orders and scripts in production. To take the FA Cup live show that we do as an example, I think we have 7 or 8 people dipping into that, and they're all able
Yep.
to edit different sections at different points, and everyone is just able to see what changes have been made, what who's working on what parts, and that collaboration feature across all of the Google Drive suite. So it's docs, sheets, forms, slides, and things like that is great. So yeah, I would definitely recommend Google Drive as you have as well.
Yeah, and these are just like small things, right, that have been around for a while, but they really make such a difference to you, especially when you're like
Yeah.
out on a shoot like that. Like, yeah, that collaboration tool is like amazing. I just remember we were, I think I was in like Stockholm on a shoot where I was interviewing a bunch of people and I was just writing questions, and then my producers could just look them over and tweak them or add whatever he wanted on the go. And then like I get there and I'm like, okay, great, this is perfect. It's there. So the
So many use
ease
cases.
and accessibility of that is, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, because they've got great web apps as well. And so we use it slightly differently. I don't sync or have the app installed on my desktop on my Mac.
Mhm.
I use it all through the web. But you were telling me that you actually use and sync it with your Mac. What are some of the benefits you found of doing that?
Yeah, so I have the backup and sync option, which
Okay.
just basically like gives me like peace of mind that I know that all of that is also synced to my hard drive on my
Mhm.
computer. So like I use it a lot now because I have like 2 terabytes of like SSD storage. So I just know that like 100 gigabytes of like Google Drive stuff is fine there. Um, but I think it's also great if I want to quickly upload a video for somebody else to see on Google Drive, I can just I've exported it from Premiere and it's already on my computer, and then I just copy and paste it into that drive folder, and within minutes it syncs and I know that it's just then on the
Yeah.
cloud. So I can show it to somebody else, it's on my phone. So I'm really liking it for that, and it just backs up in the background. So
You
whenever
can
you make a
kind of just
change, it's there.
forget about the uploading process, right? Because you just drag the
Yep.
file to a folder and then that's it. It does all the uploading process in the background. And so essentially it's a folder on your desktop that mirrors what is in the cloud as well. So it's perfect.
Yeah. I mean, you could always, and when you're saving work, you can always set that as the default if you
Yeah.
wanted to. Like if you
Yeah. Yeah.
wanted everything just instantly backed up, it would be there.
So that's for documents and files and things like that, and using the cloud. Google Drive is the one we're talking about. Of course, Dropbox has its own features as well. Talk to me about Trello, because we both use that a lot. And I think it's almost like a hidden gem that not too many people know about.
So it's a to-do list basically, and like a
Yeah.
reminders app. And I do have it set up to do lots of different things. I initially set it up as like a product, like a productive thing that I would check daily on my to-do list. My to-do list is now kind of just moved to like notes. I guess we can talk about that afterwards if you want.
Yep.
But primarily Trello now I just use to keep track of invoices and like money, like in the sense
Interesting.
that so I have like I think I have a like a sheet set up that just says like invoices, and then it has sub to-dos or sub like reminders, and it's got
Mhm.
like pending invoices, so invoices that I know that I need to send. I write them all down there, and then once I've sent them, I tick them off and I move it into like invoices sent or something like that, so I'm
Yeah.
like then waiting to be paid. So whenever I know that I'm like, okay, am I due payment for something right now, I can just like open Trello and I know that it's all going to be there.
Mhm.
And that is something that I always do. So every time I send an invoice, or I know that like a payment has been confirmed, or like we've negotiated it, I put it into Trello so I know it's there.
Yeah.
Um, the app is quite nice. So I want to kind of use it again for other stuff. Like
Yeah.
that's something that I might do right now, but I'd love to know how you use it as well.
Yeah, I find so many different uses from it. From a personal standpoint, as a very simple to-do list.
Hmm.
In that, the great thing about Trello is you kind of have these columns, right? So
Yeah.
I have created one for each client, let's say. So I've got the Kickoff Studio as one. I've got the FA as another. I've got Racing Post because we just were doing Cheltenham Festival with them. And I've created all of these. And then inside each one of those, you have these cards. So you create a card based on what that item is. So, one might be, as you said, it's got to be to actually invoice them. One might be to do a fire safety check or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
And what I love about it is you can very easily move the cards between the columns. So I then have a done column. So as soon as it's done, it gets dragged into there. And it's actually, I've found the other day, I jumped on my iPad, and the app is great across web, desktop, iPad, iPhone, whatever. So you can access it everywhere. But it was great to actually jump back on my iPad and scroll through that done list and be like, oh, I did actually get shit done last month.
Nice.
Because you often forget about it. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's so much power. I mean, I could talk loads about Trello. There's so much power in it in terms of like due dates. And then once you go into the cards, you can set checklists and stuff like that. But the other really creative way that I've used it recently was as a social media content calendar. Because you can set
Oh.
like label colors for each one. And so I would put something as a card. So let's say like I wanted to post a video out. I'd create a card with the video file attached, the copy for the post as well attached, and then assign it a color based on which social platform I wanted, then give it a due
Nice.
date. And the great thing about Trello, it also has a calendar view as well. So I can click the calendar view and know exactly for all my clients what content needed to be posted out when, on what social platform. All of the copy and all of the assets were automatically in the card. And I set that up. So I set that up when I was at DS Techeetah for the Formula E team, and I think they're still using it now. So yeah, I found Trello really useful for that. I know the FA also use it across. That's where I sort of picked up how they were using it and thought this is a really good use of Trello. So if you're looking for a social content calendar and don't want to pay for like these big expensive apps, I found Trello as a really good way of doing it as well.
Yeah, I love seeing people's processes for organizing stuff. I just love being organized and stuff, like especially
There is
digitally.
something. I was going to just say, it's like that kick that you get when you walk into a stationery store. It's the same sort of
Oh,
thing,
mate.
but digitally.
Yes. Yeah, same. Like that's how I am with camera gear.
Let's pick off, because we've got a whole list of apps here that we could talk about, but I'm wary on time. So let's maybe do two more.
Okay.
A lot of people, I think the real, throughout all of this that's been going on over the last few weeks, or we're kind of getting to the months mark now, actually, is there's been a real buzzword about conference calls, and because working from home, keeping in touch with everyone.
Mhm.
Now there's Skype, there's Zoom. I wish I bought shares in Zoom maybe a couple of months ago, because that's the real buzzword now, Zoom.
Yeah.
There's Skype, Zoom. We're using Discord right now to do audio chat as well. You mentioned House Party. Which ones have you tried? Which ones do you like? Which ones would you recommend?
Yeah, I've tried them all. I used House Party last night with friends just to have like a quick catch up.
Mm-hmm.
From what I can gather, it looks very much like Snapchat. I think it's like kind of targeted at like that Gen Z millennial audience. You can play games on it, so it's kind of fun as well. So that's nice to do group ones. I was actually shocked to find out that you can't do group video calls on WhatsApp. I thought that was like really weird. That like
Can you
that was not
not?
a thing.
Do you know what? I
No.
think Ah, I thought
It's
you
weird.
could, but there was a maximum of either 3 or 4 people, but maybe you can't. I
I
know
don't think you
FaceTime
can.
brought it
Yeah.
out. So if you have an
Yeah,
iPhone,
FaceTime
you can
have
do
it.
FaceTime group
Yeah,
calls.
so that works, but you all have to have an iPhone, right?
Yeah, of course.
Um, Discord, I don't know too much about, but that's what we're using now, but it looks kind of cool.
Hmm.
And Zoom, I've only used once before for a couple of for an interview, but I've seen a lot of people doing like group yoga classes on it and like lots of different activities. So I think that's kind of fun. And then obviously there's Skype. I just always think of Skype as like
Yeah.
business meetings and stuff, but like we're so lucky that we have like all these options right now and they're all free.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. Um, if this pandemic had happened when these weren't around, I would imagine there'd be a lot more people in a bit of a hard place right now, especially talking to family members, not just work as well, but
Yeah.
checking in on family members.
Even 10
Yeah,
years ago, you know,
yeah.
like
I mean,
think
a
back
lot
to
of these stuff.
2010. This was like
Mhm.
really basic then. Like what? You had like an iPhone 4, 5, maybe
So wait, the first iPhone was brought out
2007.
2007, right? So yeah, we're
Yeah.
we're looking at an iPhone 3G or whatever it was back then, an
Yeah. I had a
iPhone 4.
3GS, I think, in
Ah,
2010.
I skipped the
Um,
3GS. I went from the 3 to the 4, I think it was.
there you go.
Um, but yeah, I don't remember any of those having FaceTime on. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they didn't.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Like maybe Skype was around. So like it would have been basic, but it was there. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're in such a better place than we were then.
And then final one. What do you think? Do you want to chat about? Well, hold on, because we were talking about ways of killing the time, and you mentioned that you've been listening to more audiobooks recently and
Mm-hmm.
podcasts.
Yeah.
Maybe have you got any suggestions of stuff to download and listen to?
Yeah, for sure. I have a bunch of audiobooks saved that I went through a phase last year of listening to a lot, and then I kind of dropped off because podcasts like took them over. But now
Yeah.
I'm trying to jump back into more because I'm still listening to a bunch of podcasts, but there's so much um news around the coronavirus there. Like I have a lot of news podcasts that I quite like
Mhm.
the Guardian one and the New York Times. And they're great, but like we were saying earlier, I kind of don't want to be listening to it all the time. So like I'm jumping into a bunch of audiobooks. I think some that are really so Shoe Dog is one that I always go to that I think is amazing. It's the story of Phil Knight, who is the founder of Nike and how he set up Nike. And it's great on multiple levels. It's great as like a creative or an entrepreneur about starting a creative company and the vision of Nike. It's great on like a branding level. And it's also just a really good story. I think if you're not into business or anything in like business or creative field, but it's just a great story from this guy. So I always recommend Shoe Dog.
We'll
That's like
definitely have to check that
probably my
out. It
number
sounds great,
one.
actually.
I have to check my phone to see what other ones that I have on here. Um, I think, and then a lot of the ones I have are kind of like business and creative related. So if you're into that, so there's Start With Why by Simon Sinek. He has a TED talk on this. If you just search "Start With Why," he talks about why all the best companies in the world start with the question like why they're doing it rather
Yeah.
than how or what they're doing. And
Hmm.
like if you like that talk, you can jump into like the rest of it. Um, so I'm just digging them. I'm currently listening to one about ancient Egypt, which is like really off course to what I normally do, but it's quite interesting. Hearing
Yeah, it
about like
fits in
pyramids, you
with the
know?
travel aspect of you, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Like, I mean, it would be cool to go to Egypt at some point. But I don't know. I'm liking that because it's just like completely different to like work and what I'm doing. I usually like listen to them when I'm like on a run. I just like finish my working day, put on a podcast or an audiobook, and then just like that's my way of switching off from like work. And that still is now because we can go out once a day, they say, if you
Yep.
keep your
Yep. For
distance.
now, as long
For
as we're all
now.
sensible, we can
Um,
still go out in the fresh air. Um, I'm wary of time. So to finish off then, uh, let me ask you, once all this comes to an end,
mhm.
where is the place at the very top of your bucket list to visit to next and why?
Place. Okay, well, I put on Twitter last night, it was Hong Kong, because you can tell me more about this because you've been twice.
I have been twice, yes.
You've been twice? Yeah, so I think it's Hong Kong
Hmm.
because I just made a video about Singapore, and kind of why it's become this massive city and like economy in like 50 years. And I'm really intrigued by those cities in Asia that like because Hong Kong's got such an interesting history of like like obviously all the stuff that was going on last year, and it's how it's like independent from China, all that kind of stuff. I find really fascinating, and it just these massive buildings and all this architecture surrounded by these massive mountains. I just think it looks beautiful. So I think that's a place that I would just love to like film and fly a drone.
I can
So
highly, highly recommend Hong Kong. The first time I went there was
mhm.
with another creative friend of ours, Joel. We spent most of the time flying drones and really exploring the city, and that was great. And then the second time I had the privilege of going there was with Formula E, because they have the Formula E
Yep.
race there every year as well, and got a totally different aspect of the city, but it's an incredible city to visit. The culture there, the people, yeah, I cannot recommend it highly enough. So I can see why it's high at the top of the bucket list.
It's up there. And then probably Lisbon as well. That's where we
Oh,
were
okay,
meant to go in Portugal. The
fair enough.
food and just like, and it just looks amazing too.
Yeah, well, look, Andy, thank you so much for jumping on. We're, as you said, kind of halfway through the podcast. These times there's a hunger for content, so we thought we'd jump
Mhm.
on, create something. Hopefully, if you are watching or listening to this, you found it useful. We talked about a number of apps and different procedures that you can put in place for working at home, and I hope some of those suggestions make it easier for you. Maybe we'll do another one of these, depending on how the boredom has set in once we get past day 2 of lockdown.
Well, I have a lot of free time these days, so I'm totally down for doing it again. And thanks for having me.
No, thank you. And if you haven't yet, definitely check out Andy's stuff. Go visit him on YouTube. There'll be a link on screen now. He talked about his Singapore video. That is definitely one to start off with and watch, but there's lots more for you to catch up on there. Until next time, thanks very much for watching and listening.
Bye.
Hit the subscribe button as well.
That one there.
Cheers, mate.